I have had so many students reach out to me and ask if I can make a video on applying for a postgrad program in psychology. And just for a little bit of context here, I applied to 2 postgraduate programs and a 4+2 internship in 2021.
That's fantastic.
I got accepted into one of the postgrad programs and put at the top of the waitlist for the other one. In the end, I actually decided to go with the 4+2, and that's what I'm currently doing now. So in this week's video, I'm going to cover everything that you need to know about the application process at a broad level, specifically for master's programs. And very soon, I'm going to release another video about how to navigate the actual interviewing process, so stay tuned for that. In addition to all of this, I've also put together a great resource to help you with the application process. It's a pack with all of the information of the different postgrad programs in Australia for psychology masters, along with tips for writing a CV and how to write a personal statement, which a lot of universities require as part of their application process. I'm only going to offer this pack for a limited time, so make sure you go and check it out before the offer ends. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to start off by talking about how many universities to apply for. Then I'm going to talk about a couple of things that is good to be aware of during the application process. Next, we'll talk about the CV, and I'm going to share mine as an example. Then finally, I'm going to give you some insight into writing a personal statement. I also want to make it really clear that all the advice in this video is coming from my own experience along with my own research. It's always best to do your own research as well. However, hopefully my video is a good starting point, so let's get into it. All right, first off, let's begin by talking about how many universities to apply for, because some students will go hard and apply to as many as possible, whereas others might not have the time to do this, especially if they're still finishing their honors, or they might just apply to a select few. There are pros and cons to both approaches, so let's talk about it. Obviously, applying to a lot of universities gives you a higher chance, theoretically, of getting into a master's program, and it also gives you a lot of interview practice. One of the drawbacks though with this approach, which people can sometimes miss, is that interviews are really intensive. If you go for all of them, then you might burn out quicker or perform worse in the universities you really want to get into. On the flip side, applying to a small handful decreases your odds of getting into a master's program, but the advantage is that you have more time to prepare for specific interviews, and this can help you stand out as a competitive candidate. So as you can see, there's pros and cons to both approaches. My suggestion would be to apply to universities that you actually want to go to. And then hypothetically, if you do get interview offers from all of them, well done you. Only accept, say, a max of 5 interview invitations so that you can spend quality time preparing for the interview processes. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the decision is yours, so follow your gut. Also, if you're not too sure of all the different options out there, make sure you check out my pack. Let's quickly bring it up now. So inside, you'll find an information sheet that lists all the master's postgraduate programs available in Australia that will help you become a registered psychologist, not just in clinical psychology, but other disciplines too, and some information alongside this about the application process that is important to you. So definitely check that out because it's a helpful resource. Okay, so this leads me to part 2, where I want to start flagging some other really helpful information about applying to different postgraduate courses. My first tip is to pay attention to application deadlines because they will vary across different universities. Some universities will use the University Admissions Centre, or UAC for short, but only 8 in total. Most universities will require you to apply through their own systems, and for some of them it can be a little bit complicated. So start doing your research, contact the university and get more information. Also, try and get a copy of the Master's Handbook, read information about the course, and start to familiarize yourself with what they're actually looking for. The other thing that you can do to practically prepare is get a copy of your transcript. And if you haven't graduated from honors yet, you should still be able to get an unofficial copy of your transcript from your university. And then the universities that you're applying to might have a form that you need to fill out so that when you do graduate, they can contact your university. However, they'll have information about this on their website. The other important thing to note is that if you're not from Australia, or if you haven't graduated from your undergrad yet, you may need to prove that you have competency in English English. Universities will have more detail about this on their website, but generally speaking for Australians, you can usually prove this by submitting your Year 12 certificate. And then for overseas applicants, you'll probably need to do some kind of English competency test. Make sure that you read the instructions carefully. Alright, my final tip is to make sure you give yourself plenty of time because there might be other documentation the universities require. This then also allows you time to work on your CV and your personal statement if that's required, because you might want to tailor them for the specific courses that you're applying for. Again, the pack that I have created will help you with this because I put information in there about what each program requires for the application process. Alright, let's move on to the CV. It's best to think of this as like a marketing document about yourself. You want to make it short and sharp with relevant keywords and examples that match the specifications for what the university is looking for. So the way I'd suggest going about it is to put your name at the top with your contact information underneath, and then maybe 2 lines about why you think you're an amazing candidate and what your career aspirations are. And then straight underneath this should be the education section because you are applying for a university postgraduate program. And rather than just listing your degree or your degrees, make sure you give examples underneath about what you achieved during this time. Like your honors thesis, what was that on? Have you won any awards? Have you gotten anything published? Or were you an active member in any societies? All of this stuff will look really good on your application, so make sure you include it underneath your degree. Next up, you want to go into your skills, and personally I like to call this the highlights section, but call it what you want. Basically, you want to include 7 to 8 key skills that you have that match the specification for what the university is looking for, and include examples if you can for how you've demonstrated these skills. This really helps the assessor because not only do they get a small snapshot of what you're capable of, they can also tick off that you've got the skills necessary for this course. And then finally, underneath this section, you can start to put information in about your career or volunteer history. For the structure, I'd recommend putting your job title and then 1 to 2 lines about the company, and then give key examples about what you did in this role that would make you a great candidate for a postgraduate program. Avoid including any information that isn't relevant. My job just before I started applying to postgrad courses was in HR, so as an example here, I made sure that I left out anything in my role that wasn't really applicable to the courses I was applying for, but I kept in the key examples that I felt were for what would help me stand out as a candidate. And also remember to use those active words like led, developed, achieved. The final thing that I'll say about CVs is there is so much information out there. The university that you're applying to might actually list specific things they want to see in your CV, so of course follow their guide first. And if it is your first time putting together a CV, you might want to look at getting some professional help. That's what I actually did for mine when I was applying for my first jobs, and it made a really big difference in helping me stand out as an applicant. I hope this information on the CV was helpful. Remember that I'm not an expert in this area, but it comes from my knowledge of working in HR, so I really hope that this helps as a bit of a starting point. Okay, so finally, let's talk about writing a personal statement. Not all universities will require this, but a lot do as part of their application process. Usually, your task is to answer a question like, why do you want to get into this course? Or why do you want to become a psychologist? They normally don't give much else in terms of instructions, which can make the writing process feel a little bit daunting. The key piece of advice that I would give to students is to keep in mind that this is not academic writing. You can make it personal, just make sure that you keep the tone professional. Try telling a story in your personal statement unique to you, which shows the assessor that you're a mature and capable candidate. In my application pack, I give a lot more tips for writing a personal statement along with a step-by-step guide. I'm also going to leave a really great link down below that shares examples of other students' personal statements specifically for psychology postgraduate programs. This is another great resource that will give you ideas of different ways of writing and see what other students have done to approach this task. Okay, so I really hope that all of this information in the video was helpful, and I know how daunting it is to go through this application process. You've got this, you can do it, just break it down into small manageable steps and you'll get there. And of course, check out my YouTube channel where I've got lots of other resources there as well, along with raw footage of what it was like for me when I was going through my master's applications. I filmed the whole week, so definitely check that video out too. I'll leave a link somewhere at the end of this video. I'll also be releasing that video very soon about how to navigate the interview process for master's programs, so stay tuned for that. Have an amazing week. I will talk to you guys very soon. Bye!